back once again for another week. This is the Blue Corner. My name is Dennis. If it's your first time joining us, please make sure you hit that subscribe, like, give us a comment. Even to the point, let us know who you want on this show next. And I mean, that's, I guess, how we came about to this week's guest. Over the past few weeks, I've been, chilling in the clubhouse. If you're not on the app yet, I suggest you do, because we obviously opened this forum up to Clubhouse listeners. But yeah, like a lot of people were obviously commenting on there, the fact of that we don't really get to hear too much from officials when it comes to the world of MMA. And I kind of said, hey, well, hang on a sec. I've had a couple of officials on here already. But they were more in the inside the cage, as in refs. And, people said it'd be nice to pick a brain of maybe someone who officiates from outside the ref, i.e. the judges. And I was like, you know what? I think I know the guy. And here we are today. And, without further ado, I want to introduce Anthony Dimitriou. How have you been? How has 2021 been treating you? And yeah, what have you been up to lately?
Dennis, how you going, man? Been good. Mate, 2021 has been good. Work's been good. Been working through it so far. No issues with COVID or coronas. It's all been good. With all no issues health-wise. I've been working with my charity as well, on the side as well, with my normal day job and the charity work, and just been training and keeping fit and doing as much as I can.
So when you say charity, what charities? Because I actually now I actually do remember we used to do the same charity for a little while. Are you still talking about that charity, or is it something different now?
No, it's different. The one that we were with back then, I think that was back in 2015, maybe 15, 16. That was Street Buffet down at Woolloomooloo with Ian back then. Ian's still down there doing that. I sort of did my own thing after that with another guy, and we started off a charity called Angels Without Borders. And we just help out the poor, the homeless, the needy. Whoever needs a hand, we give them a hand.
And is it the same theory though? Like once a week you go set up shop like we did with the Street Buffet and
this one's a bit different from Street Buffet. There's a welfare centre in Newtown that we help out. So we just take the food there on a Sunday. We get as much as we can, and then the welfare centre just feeds it out to the homeless and whoever just go there that needs a good feed.
Awesome.
We take them food, we take them clothes, whatever we can, toiletries, bed sheets, whatever they need. We take it there and they take it. The welfare centre just opens up the door and just gives it to them for free.
Beautiful, beautiful. And has that changed through COVID? Like obviously, we always talk about the world has changed now with the pandemic. Have there been any more precautions, or like also have you noticed that, I guess even like with the homeless, has there been more people becoming homeless? Because when we talk about people losing jobs and things like that, like have you noticed a change throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, when it first came out, we had those restrictions, so it was limited to what you could do. So when it hit most of 2020, it was very strict with what we could do and what we can. We had to back off for a while from the welfare centre because they had that tight restriction of passing the coronavirus that way. Once restrictions started to ease and the government said you're allowed to do this and that, the welfare centre opened up again. We did notice a lot more happening, a lot more homeless, a lot more people needing stuff because out of work, different circumstances for different people in their life. So they were coming to the welfare centre a fair bit. And from there, you just noticed how things have changed now as well. Like you do see it. You see it in the streets as well with people just either street sleepers or people out of work. Their circumstances have changed, being out of work all of a sudden, not having income, having debts and that. It's been a bad year, 2020. Let's just hope 21's better.
And do you feel like we're kind of coming good, or are you worried now? Because obviously this month is the first month now that JobKeeper's gone.
This is going to be the test now. I think now for this month, moving onwards, will be a test because a lot of people that relied on that JobKeeper, and we'll see now with the government stopping it, how much of effect it's going to have on the economy, on people and people's lives.
Nice, nice. And just, I mean, before we move on with the conversation, if people do want to help out that organisation, what's the best way of them getting through?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page called Angels Without Borders. They can find us on there. They can contact us on there. And yeah, we check up on the messages, and there's a mobile there. You can contact as well. And yeah, we just get back to people that way.
And what kind of help are you looking for? Is it more financial assistance, or is it like
Whatever.
clothing, food? What is it that you guys are?
Whatever people want to donate. If they want to donate food, clothes, they want to donate money. We're a registered charity, so it's all legit. Whatever they want, they can just contact us on there,
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, look, as I said in the intro, I mean, the reason I really got you on board today was purely on the fact that we wanted to get, a judge's opinion on a few matters, and as I said, like, I mean, me and you have always had like a pretty good and honest relationship as well. I know there's been a few times I've been on the text to you, and you've told me to shut up, and it is what it is. But like, I also thought that you'd be the perfect person to kind of bring on board. But like, I guess we'll start at the beginning, like just also trying to get a grasp of your history. So like, what initially got you into the combat sports, or where did your journey begin?
My journey started in 1999. I saw an ad in a local gym that I was training at, and it said, learn the fighting arts of the ancient Greeks. So I rang up, spoke to the gentleman that started it. His name's Con Pappy. So I rang him up. I said, where's your gym at? He told me. I went there in 99, and from there just stuck with it. So it's been about 22 years now. Yeah, I've been doing pancration. So my base is pancration. I came not from any martial arts experience. I was playing soccer for about 20 years and then jumped straight into martial arts.
And was it just a curiosity thing, or like what drew you to, I guess, the martial arts?
I was curious when I first saw my background's Greek. So when I saw the sign saying learn the fighting art of the ancient Greeks, I was curious. When I got there, Con did the intro for it, and mate, I pretty much liked it, what it was, because it was stand-up, it was wrestling, it was grappling. You had everything mixed together. So I thought it was more of a functional martial art, and I said I'll just stick to it, and I did ever since then. It's been good.
So have you actually taken that to competitions as well, or is it something that you just train in?
No, I've competed. First competition was in 2000 when I first started fighting up until 2016. I've competed. So I've competed in state level, national level, and international level. So I've competed with the pancration or amateur MMA, or you want to call it MMA or pancration, whatever you want to call it. Started off with that. When it first started in 99, when I first started, first comp was in 2000. Pretty much it was bare knuckles, no shin guards. It was just optional if you wanted a mouth guard or a groin guard. That's how I started with the amateur stuff. And then it progressed. And then we had state titles, national titles. And then if you made the international team, you went over and competed overseas for world championships. First time I competed was in 2001 in Athens with the Australian team. 3 of us went there and competed. The 3 of us went well. It was myself, Luke Pizzuti, and one of Luke's students, Dennis. I just forgotten his last name, but we went there, competed against, I think there was 10 countries at the time. We ended up coming, I think, out of the whole team thing, we came about 3rd or 4th out of the whole competition. But Luke got gold medal for welterweight. I got bronze medal for middleweight, and Dennis got, I think, the silver medal for heavyweight. If I'm wrong, sorry, Luke. Sorry, Dennis. It's been a long time. But then later on, after that, I competed in the Pancration World Champions in Bulgaria, 2010. I won the gold medal for the veterans. We had a full team then, which was good. A lot of countries turned up there in Bulgaria. We ended up coming, I think, 3rd in the world as a whole team, but I won the veterans event, got the gold medal. And the last time I competed internationally was in Italy at the Pancration World Championships in Italy in 2016. And I ended up competing in the grappling, the pancration, and the kickboxing. I went there with a torn ACL, but I ended up getting 2nd place in all 3. So it worked out good.
And just so people know, when you say Dennis, it definitely wasn't me. I just want to clear that up. Like I had nothing to do with this. You mentioned though at the beginning that like at that time, like the groin and the mouth guard were kind of like if you chose to wear them, and you also said bare knuckle. On that point, like how do you, now that bare knuckle boxing has come about, like do you have an opinion on that?
Not really, man. Look, the early days of the sport was the early days, and then as it progressed, more rules were implemented. It got sanctioned. It became legal in Australia to do MMA. So you have to go with the rules that sanctioning bodies put through and what the Combat Sports Authority put through, and yeah, it was pretty good.
Nice. And I guess, I mean, like where did you transition from? Obviously, I guess starting your journey in, I say, the martial arts, to kind of, I guess, starting it in the officiating role. Because the thing is, like, as I said, I got you on because we want to talk a little bit about the judging aspect, but I also know that you also ref as well. And yeah, so when did that all begin?
We first started doing the judging refereeing with the pancration comps, just the amateur MMA. We started doing that. I started learning through my trainer what to look for as a judge, what to look for as a referee. Started building up from there. And then once the first show I ever did for CFC was around about 2006, I think, as a judge.
And you've worked on numerous promotions, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you've done many on the national circuit, and also I guess you've done a few on the internationals. What are some of the I guess promotions that you've worked for?
Locally, started off with CFC, then you had Hexagon, you had J&I promotions, you had a few other local small promotions that would come and do shows, would help out with there. Also, of course, the pancration comps, they were like a regular thing for us to do with the pancration. It helped a lot of fighters come through to learn MMA in a safe way and compete in a safe way. And it helped them get that step into MMA, and if they wanted to progress from there and get into the professional way of fighting.
And on the international scene?
International scene, from 2010, started working with the UFC. So I started off with the UFC as a timekeeper. That was the first position they gave me. Then I went and they gave me the second time. I think they came around, they put me as a inspector. And then from there on, they had me as a judge, working as a judge.
So there is a progression. You can't jump straight into the judges seat. Is that what you're saying? Or
No. Some people got straight into the judges scene or refereeing scene. With myself, I just started with timekeeper. Then they put me as a inspector, and then from there went into judging. I didn't mind it. I thought it was good because I got to see different things of what happens with the UFC, the way they run things. So it was good. I learned what happens with the timekeepers. I learned what happens with the inspectors. Then I got into the judging, which I was doing before with the amateur stuff. So, look, I didn't mind it. It was good. It was a good experience.
And I mean, one of the questions that I got asked last week, and I guess for someone that's kind of wanting to get into judging, what kind of like, what's the kind of, you know, I guess the timeline of how you can get into it? Like, is it literally you just registering it? Is there courses to be done? Like, what is the kind of progression on, like, you just being, I don't know, a fan of the sport, or as I said, a practitioner in the sport or whatever, to actually getting to even just the local scene and then moving forward into, I guess, the international scene? See,
when we started, when I first started doing it, the officiating with the early days with the amateur stuff, I was pretty much taught through my trainer. He used to be an ex-professional boxer. Then he got into the MMA. He was first a freestyle wrestler, got into Commonwealth Games, Olympic teams, was a professional boxer as well, and then got into the MMA. He pretty much taught me what to look for as a judge and how to be with a referee as well. That were the early days. I learnt through him. Now I know IMAF and other organizations have like seminars that you can do or courses you can do, and they put you through and they teach you these things as well. And like I know in the States they have some of the other referees in the States have their own courses that you can go and do as well to learn how to be a judge and a referee.
But is that more like a defensive driving course where it's kind of like if you choose to do it, or is it something that you have to do?
Hey, look, I think it's good to do. If you want to get into being a judge or a referee, I think doing these courses now would be good. There's so much involved in MMA that you do need to have some sort of, I think a martial arts background will help, because at least then you know what's actually happening in the fight and what you're looking at. And then these courses that you can do as a referee or do a judge's course, at least then it'll give you the other insight to it as well through the people that are teaching you who've got the experience.
And do they at all sometimes, I guess, when you do things like that, I know I was on an amateur card 2 weeks ago or something, but like this is totally random. This was to do with the ring announcer and stuff. They did like a kind of buddy shadowing system. Does something like that occur as well, or do they just like obviously throw you in to judge, or is it something that you sit next to a judge for a couple of, I guess, events to just see how they kind of go about things, or is it more a sense of once they kind of feel like you're qualified, they just throw you in?
Honestly, I've never seen the buddy system before, so I can't talk about it. I don't know much about it. I've never seen it. I think my guessing is that they probably have that experience that they put them in, that they feel comfortable of having as a judge to judge the fights. But I've never seen the buddy system. So that's a new thing to me. I never heard of it before.
No, as I said, it was more a couple of weeks back. We had the ring announcer, and as I said, that's not an official, but it was just kind of like we had 2 fight nights, and it was kind of like he was showing the guy that was going to do the second night. This is how you kind of
look. That's a good idea. Why not? At least it gives the guy some insight. Gives him, he knows what to do on his own. If he ever needs to do it on his own, he has to step up. No, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. And when you first got handled with that responsibility of judging, I have to ask, like, because I always ask the fighters when they do their first fight as well, like what kind of, not emotions, but I guess the nerves and stuff like that. So once you got the position of actually sitting there and making some, I guess, calls, like what were the nerves? I mean, I asked Sharpie the same with reffing, like do you, I guess, kind of feel nervous, even on the local events, but even, I guess, when you do some of the bigger events as well, do you find that pressure builds up on your shoulders?
Mate, I don't. At the beginning, when I first started, yeah, you'd probably have a bit of pressure. I just focused on the fight. I just wanted to focus on the fight. I blocked out everything else that was around me. I just focused on the 2 fighters in there doing what they had to do. There is pressure as a judge. You got to make sure you're looking at what you're looking at, scoring it for what it is. But to tell you the truth, at the beginning, there was some pressure because I was new at it. I didn't want to make a mistake or anything like that, but I just focused the whole time on the fight. I blocked everything else that was going on around me and just focused on those 2 fighters in there to make sure I was judging the right fight.
Now, let me ask you though, like, I don't know how the pay structure works on the local scene, but obviously when you get to the levels of the UFC, does the pressure of, I guess, I mean, I always say they should change the pay structure the way they do it, but at the moment how it sits is that most fighters, and I won't say all, but most get a show purse and a win purse. Does that ever play into the back of your mind that, technically speaking, if it ever goes to a decision, right, that you could potentially be, I mean, one person's going to lose half their purse, but does that play into your mind at all that, like this is someone's livelihood that you're practically in charge of?
Mate, I judge the fight for what the fight is. Like I said, I block everything else out and I just focus on the fight. I try not to think of anything else but that fight, because I don't want to be thinking of all these different factors and not focusing on the fight. So I'd rather just focus on the fight, see what the guys are doing and scoring it for what it is.
And do you have like your own, I guess, criteria of how you judge the fight? I mean, I've seen some things really being thrown out there. Last week someone was saying, should we judge each round on a minute-to-minute basis, kind of like who won the first minute, second minute, third minute, or something like that. Like when you're watching a fight unfold in front of your eyes, like how does the mechanics, I guess, in your mind kind of work in the sense of, do you kind of like, I mean, the way I do it at home, and this is like totally different, is, I see the first exchange go, and then through that first exchange, I kind of like give someone the heads up or whatever you want to call it. And then obviously the next exchange, I kind of go, okay, does it equal out now, or are we edging more towards another person? Like as you're watching a fight unfold, how does the mechanics in your mind kind of work as a judge?
I watch the fight. I watch each round. So from the beginning of the round to the end of the round, I'm watching each fighter, seeing who's doing the most in that fight. So whoever's scoring the most cleaner shots, whoever's doing the most to gain those points. So I pretty much focus on both, and I look at who's doing the most on that fight, who wants to really win. And you can see when you can see that in the fighter, who's scoring the cleaner points, who's doing the takedowns, who's trying to get the submission, who's actually doing the damage, who's doing the most in the fight, like the duration time in the fight. Those things are what I take into account when I'm judging the fight.
And do you give anything more weight than something else? Like, because, you know, when you sometimes hear, you know, someone, I guess, with a wrestling background maybe would score the takedowns and something like that a little more than, I guess, the striking, or if you're from a boxing background, which I guess is the common thing at the moment, because we talk about a lot of boxing judges coming across and they don't really understand the BJJ and the wrestling side of things. They score higher on I guess the significant strikes than they do the rest of it. Like, do you find that is sort of the case? And I'm not saying about you in particular. I'm just saying in general. Do you find that judges, I guess, score things differently just based on the background that they have?
Well, I can't answer how other judges score. I know how I score. I look at the whole fight. I look at what the guys are doing standing up. I look at what the guys are doing on the ground. I look at the grappling, the takedowns. I look at the whole fight, the duration of the fight, the damage of the fight, everything in there. So I can't comment how other judges look at it. I don't know what their background is regarding their experience in martial arts or what they've done in the past as a judge, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, or anything else. The way I look at the fight, I look at the whole fight. I look at each round, how I score it, and I look at what's been done during that fight. How much that fighter wants to win that fight. You'll see how much he's going to do during that fight, whether it's a male or female fighter during that time.
And what's, just in your opinion, what's the most memorable fight you've been involved with? And I'm not saying the biggest fight. I'm just saying the most memorable fight to you.
The most memorable fight for me would have to be the Mark Hunt and Bigfoot Silva, the first fight they had in Brisbane. That was a massive fight.
And you were involved with that, or you just there as a spectator?
No, I wasn't judging that fight. That wasn't one of my fights that I judged. But just watching it, that was like the best fight I've ever seen.
And which one, obviously now, which one was I guess the one that's most memorable that you've been a part of, like where you have to literally pinch yourself and go, I can't believe I'm actually a part of this one?
Oh, jeez, man. There's been heaps. I can't point one out now, eh? There's been so many with the UFC. Oh, man, you got me there, eh?
Yeah.
You got me there. I just can't think of one that I've worked, like all of them that I've worked on. I have to say, all of the fights that I've worked on and judged, I've liked them all. Like they've got their own thing to them. So each fight will have their own thing that I like about them. I can't just pick one out. I enjoyed every fight that I watched that I'm judging. I like all of them. I can sit back and say, yeah, that was good. But I can't just pinpoint one now. You just got me there.
Have you ever had a fight, though, that you've been the judge of that you kind of glad it didn't go to the judges? And I mean like that, like it's that close that you're kind of like, because you know how sometimes as well you're watching an event and like people obviously like ourselves can thank God we're not judging this one. Has there ever been a moment like that where you're like, thank God this fight finished because like this one's a really, really hard one to judge? Has there ever been those kind of moments?
No, I can't say that, because the fights that I've judged, I can say have been good and clear enough to judge. Yeah.
And I know you can't talk for other judges as you mentioned before, but I guess a question that comes up a lot is like, we'll go for a 3-round fight. Mm-hmm. How can one fight have it? And look, we have split decisions, and typically speaking, you would think, you know, it'll be like a 29-28, 29-28 the other way. But like sometimes you'll get fights which are like 30-27, and then the other judge will have it 30-27 the other way. What is your kind of and as you mentioned, like you can't say what other but why do you think that happens? Like what is it like because like from an onlooker, and I'm just saying like as a general fan, like you're kind of like, what are these judges looking at when they both have it so completely different?
Like I said, can't comment how other judges think. I don't know. There's 3 judges and they're all sitting at different points of the octagon. And that judge will see what he sees in front of him. And that's how they score it. I see the fight the way I see it. The other 2 see it their way. If another judge sees it the opposite to what I do, that's his decision. I can't answer that. I've got no answer for it.
And is it something that you potentially feel like if we had more judges, in the sense of, you know, people sometimes talk 5, 7, 9. I mean, to me, it's kind of like, where does it stop, right? Like at the end of the day, if we have 9 judges and people are still not happy with the outcome, do we go to 11? Do we go to 13? I don't know. I don't
think it would make a difference whether you had 3, 5, 7, whatever it is. I don't think it would make much of a difference. I think I think the 3 judges is good. It's always like you look at the history of boxing before MMA became what it is. They've always had their 3 judges. MMA's got their 3 judges. I don't think increasing the judges will make any difference. I think you'll have the same outcome. And people will always have their say on it. Well, you know, why did that judge do that? Even if you had 5 judges, what are they going to turn around and say? The same thing as what they're going to say about the 3 judges. If you increase it to more, it's going to be the same thing again. So I honestly just think just the 3 judges is probably the best way to go.
And do you feel like, I mean, they've now introduced with the ref, like the video ref outside. I'm still not 100% sure on how that works, but there is a ref that now sits outside, and whether he can talk when the action stops or something like that, I'm not sure how that works. But do you feel like potentially maybe adding a judge that's seeing what the viewer is seeing, i.e. the telecast or whatever, do you think something like that might help?
Tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't think it would.
No?
I don't think. I don't know. I've never thought of it. To give you a straight answer on it, I can't. It's just, I don't know. I think the 3 system that they have now with the 3 judges, I think that's the best way to do it. If they ever come out with something like that, I'm guessing they're going to give it a test run to see how it goes. But mate, I wouldn't be able. I can't give you an answer on it.
How do you feel about the concept of open scoring? Like at the end of every round, we know what the judges give. So therefore, I guess, you know, a fighter also knows where he kind of stands at the end of each round. Do you think that might help, or how do you feel about open scoring?
I don't think that'll help. I think I just leave it the way it is. Okay. I don't think it would help. I think just leave it the way it is. They say you give your scores at the end of each round, and then if it goes to the decision, they tally them up and you got your winner. I think because if you have the open score, the fighters will hear what we're scoring, and you just don't know how it's going to affect their fight during that time. So it's best just to leave it, I think, the way it is, and then at the end of the 3 rounds or 5 rounds, whatever it is, and it goes to the decision, you have your winner then.
Do you think that the crowd can, I guess, alter your decision? And I only say that because, I mean, even when I watch the telecast, right, and I've said this multiple times, I'll listen to Joe Rogan, and I'll come out of that fight thinking exactly what Joe Rogan's been selling, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. Like Joe Rogan will be like, blah, 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 and then I'll re-watch that fight, but on mute, and I get a totally different outcome. Do you feel like that's ever the case with the crowd? Obviously, you know, if the crowd obviously makes noise for one fight or whatever, does that white noise ever, I guess, play into the hand of a decision?
Mate, like I said before, when I'm judging that fight, you just focused on them. Everything else that's happening around you from the outside, you just block it all out. You just focus on them. That's the best way to judge it. I don't have any other outside influences while I'm judging that fight in my head. I'm looking at those 2 fighters going for it. That's what I'm judging on.
Now, on crowds, though, have you ever had any altercations? And I mean that like as well, you know, you always hear like people going to Brazil, and I mean, they're pretty passionate over there. But like, have you ever felt like, you know, I don't know, and I guess even on socials or whatever, have you ever gotten grief or threats from people or something? Like, do you sometimes feel that pressure? Like, and I guess it wouldn't happen here in Australia, I would say, because I always like to tell people we're pretty laid back. But when you're doing these cards overseas, have you ever had moments where you've kind of like, not feared for your life, but you know what I mean? Like, have you ever? No,
Never.
Never happened?
No, never. Oh, on social media, you're going to get people on Twitter or something say, oh, that judge did this, that judge is stupid and the rest of it. But you know what, man, that's their opinion. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. But I've never had anyone, like you said before, ever these circumstances come after a fight. Never, no. Especially at the arenas. It's always safe. It's always good. We're well looked after, so it would never happen. And social media, man, it's social media. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. They can say whatever they want.
And when you go away with these organizations, like what's your relationship with the fighters? Do you try to, I guess, distance yourself with the fighters like before and after the fight, or is it something that you do kind of, I guess, form relationships with fighters, or how's your kind of? Because I always say, like, look, if you do it long enough, surely you will form some form of relationship, right? But also, I mean, when I had Jimmy on, he was saying, like, when he gets put on an assignment for a fighter that he's maybe developed a relationship over the years, he actually says to him, look, can I get reassigned? I don't want to be on this fight. But like, just knowing the amount of time that you've spent on the circuit, like, yeah, how's your relationship with fighters? Do you try to keep away from them?
We try to keep away when we're on the show with them, whether it's here in Australia or overseas. We don't mix with the fighters at all before or after. We go there to do our job. They're there to do their job. We just don't mix with them at all. Usually officials just stick with the officials, myself, you know, with some of the other judges, referees or cutmen. That's who the usual people that we are when we're together. We don't mix in with the fighters before and after. On the low, because I've worked through the local circuit and I know the guys from the local circuit, if I do know them and I'm approached to work a show and these guys are in there, yes, I would do the same thing. And I tell the UFC, you know, look, I know these guys, I've known them from the past, or I've trained with them, or I train with them, whatever it is. I'll say to them, I'd rather be assigned to a different fight. Yeah.
And I guess
but that honestly, with me, that's the fights that I have judged through the UFC. I've never had that happen to me, so it's been good. So whenever I've been assigned fights and things like that, especially if they're local Aussie fighters, I've never had any mix with them outside of the fight scene and that. So, and when they've come to the fight scene, I've never had them as my part of my judging. So it's been good.
And since you've, as I said as well, you've done a bit of reffing as well. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer to take the judge's role, or do you prefer reffing?
No, I like both. I enjoy both. They're both good. They're both different. You know, the judges, you're there, you're scoring a fight, referee in the middle of the action, you're just making sure fight's going legit. No one's cheating, no one's doing anything illegal, and you know, you're there to protect the fighter. So I enjoy doing both.
And I guess another suggestion that kind of got thrown in regards to, I guess, judging as well. And I mean, you kind of answered it because, as I said, can you be influenced by the crowd noise, the white noise, as I like to call it? But just say, like, you're in the arena, like obviously in the stadium that you're sitting in front of right now, but like you're in an arena like that, and they actually gave the three judges their own isolated room out the back, so there's no crowd noise, and literally you get one vision, or maybe even multiple views. I don't know how it would work, but so basically you're taken out of that arena feel. Do you think that would and I won't even say improve, because I'm not trying to pin that at the moment the judging's wrong. As I say, like, judges get it totally different, and it's just more or less trying to understand why. But like, do you think that isolating the judges out of the arena, giving them like video feeds, so basically the angle that you would potentially get when you're sitting, but you're out of the arena, so you're not hearing the noise of the crowd and stuff like that, do you think that would be a good or a bad thing?
Good question. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It could work. It might not work. I don't know. Just being there at the cage side, looking at it, you've got that front view in front of you. You can see the fighters there. We do have a small monitor that's in front of us as well. So if the fighter's in a position where you've got one of the columns there of the octagon blocking the view, or they got their backs towards you, the monitor that's in front of you will be like a top angle, and you can see what they're doing from the top. So we'll have visual from them, either live visual, us looking at them, but if our vision's blocked, like I said, through a column of the octagon, or they got their backs to us, or the referee's in their way, we look at that monitor, and that monitor has a top view, and we can see what they're doing, or it's from a different angle where it's clearer that we can see. Having us in a room out of the octagon, away from the octagon, somewhere else in the stadium, mate, I wouldn't know how that would work. I don't know.
See, because to me, I see good and the bad. I was like, yeah, you would take yourself away from having that crowd noise, which I think sometimes, because look, it happens at every sport, right? As I say, like if the crowd suddenly erupts for one guy, you kind of feel like whatever that one guy's done must have been good, right? It just kind of happens. But what I think you kind of miss out on if you would be to be taken out of it is that what I always talk about when you're cage side is you can really hear the shots, right? And I kind of feel like sometimes you feel like you've hit someone, and sometimes you can hear that they've literally hit someone. Like hearing those shots to me is vital as well.
Yeah, look, the crowd's going off. The crowd's always going to go off. They see something good, they love it. Their emotions are high. They love seeing the fight. They're just going to go off. But like I said, when I'm there, I block everything else out. I don't listen to anyone else around me. You can hear everything's going on, but I just block that out and I just focus on the fight. That's the main thing that I do. I don't listen to any other crap that's going around me. Yes, you hear the crowds going off. They're screaming when a big hit happens or a big slam or something like that. But mate, I just focus on that, and that's what I focus on, those two guys in there. Having the judges in a separate room somewhere else in the arena with no other noise, just focusing on a fight, it could work. I don't know. It might be not. Maybe it won't work. Mate, who knows? Unless they try it and they give it a dummy run, who knows?
Now, has there ever been a fight, and once again, I'm not saying that you feel like you got the call wrong, but has there ever been a fight that you've judged it one way, gone home and watched the broadcast? And this is what I always say to people as well, is the fact that we as the viewing population, we see the one way it plays out, and that is what the broadcast gives us. Has there ever been a moment, though, like where... Look, and as I said, I'm not saying you got it wrong. You're standing behind your decision, but you've gone home and watched the broadcast and you've gone like, I understand why people are maybe giving you a little bit of grief or whatever. Has there ever been moments like that?
No. What I score, I'm pretty happy with what I've done. I'm confident with the way I've judged it. I'm confident with that. Even when I watch the fight at home later, I'll be confident, and that's how I'll see it again.
And are you the kind of guy that rewatches every fight?
I try to as much as I can. I like watching the fights. So if I get time to watch the fights after, I'll watch them. There's times where I can't, I'm just too busy with work to sit down and just watch a whole show again. But I'm confident at the time that I'm giving that decision. I'm confident with that score that I've given. And even if I'm watching the fight after the events happen, I'm at home watching it, I'll score it the same way.
And I guess the other thing is. The suggestion I kind of had is, and I guess it goes to like getting your first aid certificate and stuff like that, right? And I guess we kind of like touched on it before on how to become a ref. The thing that I think makes more sense, and I don't know how you would feel about something like this, is I think that we should have like a refresher course, right? And so what I would like to see happen is that whoever's on the judging committee, we once a year, or maybe if you want to make it 24 months, whatever, but once a year, it's not even a live fight. Like whoever's in charge, the commission or whatever, sends one fight, whether it be a 3-round fight, whether it be a 5-round fight, to all current judges, right? And then you, kind of like an exam, you've got to judge that fight.
Yeah.
And if like 90% of the judging roster judge it one way, and then you have the 10% of the roster have some weird sort of judgments, to me that would then go, okay, maybe we need to talk to these 10% because they're not getting it the same way the 90% have, if that makes sense. Would you, I guess, be a fan of something like that?
But how do you know that 90% got it right? And how do you know if the 10% didn't get it right? You don't know that.
Well, that's true, but I guess
it could go either way. You don't know, because like I said, everyone sees a fight the way they see it. A refresher course, I don't know if it would work, man. I've never thought of it. Maybe it could work if the Combat Sports Authority or commissions that govern the sport, if they want to do something like that, they can. I don't know how effective it would be. But like you said, you might have 90% score it that way and 10% score another way? How do you know the 90% got it right? How do you know the 10% didn't get it right? So I don't know. It could work. Maybe. I don't know, man. It could work.
Which is true, but I guess whoever's in charge of the testing, they would have a fair idea of what they're expecting the scores to be before they send it out. So
Yeah.
I guess there's got to be a governing body still, right? And they're like, okay, as a governing body, this is what we would see the score being. Let's send it out to everyone and see what they come. Like with anything, whether it be a driving test or whatever, right? It's. I get what you're saying, and I never actually thought of it that 90% could get it wrong and 10%, but then we're in trouble. Like if 90% are getting it wrong, then we really got to I guess try to figure out.
That's what I'm saying. You could. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Like unless they try it and test it out, it could work. Like doing a refresher course every 1 or 2 years.
I guess that's the only way, because and I guess the reason I came up with that kind of concept was the current state of things. People are always going, oh, it's because they're boxing judges, right? And coming across to MMA, and I just kind of feel like, okay, well, if that's the case and they're getting these scores wrong, then we can educate them in MMA, and then hopefully over time we would get better. Do you feel that having ex-fighters convert across to judges, because that's another one that gets thrown out a lot? Do you feel like because someone's a fighter, they would automatically become a good judge? Do you stand behind something like that?
It could help. It could help because they got that background, they got that understanding of the fight scene. They know what they're looking at. I don't think it's a bad idea, but sometimes a good fighter might not be a good official. You don't know that. It's just on the person. Like sometimes you get fighters that transition into coaching. Sometimes they're not a good coach. Sometimes you get coaches that are the opposite. They're good coaches, but they're not good fighters. Honestly, I wouldn't know how that would work. But I think having a background of the mixed martial arts scene, that would help. And if you're a fighter and you've got a good understanding of the sport, I think that would help you with your judging and your refereeing, because at least then you know what you're looking at.
See, because the only problem I have with that is that if you're an ex-fighter, you've probably formed a lot of relationships. So where we spoke about before, obviously.
Okay, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's why I love having this discussion, right? Like, because when people bring that up, I'm like, yeah, they know the sport. But like, just say you're an ex-fighter and now you're judging someone that you've trained with for the last 20 years because you're an ex-fighter, right?
Well, then you gotta set that aside. If you're going to transition from a fighter, and if you've got mates or if you've got your training partner going into the sport, you got to set that aside. You got to be professional at what you're doing. You can't have favoritism. You can't have biases. You can't have any of that. You got to focus on the sport for what it is. Whether they're, like you just said, for a fighter and they've come over and they've been training someone with the past 10 years and then they're fighting and you're the judge or the ref, you got to set that all aside and you got to say, no, I'm just going to focus on the fight. Or like we said before, if you get assigned to a fight and that person's there, you can just ask the commission, look, I know these people, assign me to another fight, have someone else there because I don't want any conflict of interest. There's different ways you can look at it.
Do you feel that, I guess, if we offered bigger, like we always talk about fighters not getting paid enough, but do you feel like if we offered bigger purses to officials, that would make a difference? Because I've also heard that argument too, that officials don't get paid enough either, and if there was more money, we would end up getting better officials come through. Do you see that as a point at all, or
if you're passionate about what you do, doesn't matter what you do, you enjoy it. I think you're just going to do the job for what it is. I don't think the money part of it has any factor to do with it. I enjoy refereeing and the judging. The financial part of it doesn't come into my head at all. I just enjoy for what it is, and I do for what it is.
And do you think it can become confusing in the sense of like these different organizations? Because I know even like dealing with state commissions over here, so we'll bring it back to a national way. Or I mean, it happens over in the States as well. Like, what's a ground opponent? What's this? What's that? I kind of feel like, depending on what state you're in or what organization you're reffing or judging in, the rules, I mean, generally speaking, 90% of the rules are the same, but then you have that odd rule that's a little different. And I always say that for the refs and the fighters as well, like that it becomes confusing, right? Because you're like, well, what set of rules are we going by now? Do you ever have those moments as well? Like, just knowing that you've obviously done so many different organizations, do you think not having the same rules for every single organization not can sway your decision, but can make it confusing?
No, I can say that with the organisations that I've worked for, they've pretty much been all on the same path. So I haven't had that happen to me. So I know they all follow the same rules. They all go by the same, whatever it is, it's all the same. So I've never really had anything where they've gone where they're different rules. So I don't know, man. I haven't really had it happen to me, so I can't make a comment on it.
And now we'll take you to reffing and judging.
Yeah.
Do you ever, because, you know, people always talk about potentially changing it up a little bit if it's a title fight, right? Letting it go for a little while longer because it's, and I guess that's more to do with a ref, letting it go for a couple of shots longer because there's a title on the line. But in general, do you find that you judge or ref fights differently according to the gravity of that fight, i.e., is there a title attached? Is it even amateurs to pros? Do you find that you do end up reffing or judging those fights differently?
I do. I judge and ref them all the same way. Yeah, I look at them all the same. I don't let, like I said, man, I don't let any other influences come in. They're two fighters going for it, fighting, whether it be a title fight or a non-title fight or an amateur or a pro fight. I go in it with the same mindset. They're two athletes going for it. At the end of that fight, there's got to be a winner. And I look at it like that. I don't let any other influences come into it.
Yeah, right. So you totally would give an amateur the same as a UFC title fight?
Why not, man? They're both athletes going for it. So I look at it the same way. Amateur's amateur. It's kind of not as heavy as what the pros do. But if I'm judging or refereeing amateur fights, I don't favour or think of things differently to what it would be as a pro fight. One day they're going to become pros. So I might as well just... I have that mindset where I like to just look at the two fighters. They're going for it, and whoever's going to win is going to win according to how they go.
Nice. Yeah. So, what was it the first time getting a call to the big show
with the UFC?
Yeah. What like how did that all happen? Like, was it something that you reached out to them, and also like I guess the other thing is like, how does it work with them being an international brand? Because obviously here you've got to be registered to the state committee, right?
Yeah.
But then also UFC bring Herb Dean across and stuff like that. So how does that all work? Or the same thing when you go to, say, Singapore and stuff like that, do you have to then be registered in Singapore, or how does all that work? And how did they originally, I guess, reach out to you? Was it something that you just got a call out of the blue? Was it something that you approached them? How did that all work?
When UFC came out here the first time in 2010, they contacted, they got in contact with officials here. So they contacted them and said they wanted to come out here and do a show. What's the best way of doing it? And then from there, they approached the Combat Sports Authority. We were already licensed with the Combat Sports Authority, and we got the call up through that way. Yeah.
And is it any different, as I say, when you go international?
So when you go international, when we do the international shows, UFC will call us direct. So they will call us direct and say, listen, we've got a show happening, whether it's in Singapore or Japan or Korea or Philippines or Macau, wherever it is, or New Zealand, where we look after the Asia Pacific area. We just get the call up from the UFC. If they're going through a sanctioning body through that country, we might have to fill out the forms to go through that sanctioning body in that country, or it's maybe the UFC doing the sanctioning themselves that way. Yeah.
I have to ask, I asked Sharpie the same thing. Has there ever been a moment where you're over, I guess, in one of these other countries and you've had to pinch yourself? And I just mean one of those things where you're like, I never thought that officiating would bring me here.
Yeah, man. Look, I think every country that I've gone to is that feeling, because you don't think of it when you start. You just think, wow, I'm on the biggest show here in Sydney. It's the best. You're enjoying it. And then when they approach you to work overseas, whether it be Singapore, like I said, Singapore, Japan, Korea, the Philippines or New Zealand, these things here are just like the best thing. It's the best. Like, you're going to different countries, meeting different people. You're working with these people that you enjoy seeing as well. And you're working with a company that is big. So, no, mate, I reckon it's all the countries. I just can't pick one out. I enjoy all of them. They're all different.
And have you had any difficulties, like just language barriers?
Like yeah, we do. We do when we go to China or Japan or South Korea and that, where the English, you might get places where they don't speak English at all. So I remember with Sharpie when we were in Shenzhen, we want to go and get something to eat. Pretty much all the menus were in Chinese. We could not read them, or we couldn't. They were us speaking English. They didn't understand the word, so we're just looking at the menu and we're pointing at the food that we want, and the lady would say, "Okay," she just nod her head and then bring out, and then would point to the drinks that we want, and she'd bring out the drinks, and then they'll bring the bill, and like the bills, you got numbers there, and we just give them the cash, and then off we go. But yeah, it's good fun. Look, it makes it interesting. You have a good time that way, you know. I mean, Sharpie, pretty much me, Sharpie, and all the rest of the guys. We've traveled a fair bit. We've been to a lot of places.
And it is a bit of a boys' club, right? Like, because like I remember Sharpie mentioning that like he loves the fact that the relationships he's built with, I guess, not so much yourself and people from the Australian scene, but he said like the relationships he's built with people from the UK and stuff. And he's like, it's one of those things that he really enjoyed that. Yeah, every time that happened, it was
100%. We become good friends with the UK officials, the officials from the US, even with some of the officials that are in Asia as well. It's the best because we all get along, you know, and we get along, we do the job, we always meet up, we keep in contact as well after the fight. So it's always good.
And yeah, like do you find that, or not do you find, is it a fly in, fly out kind of situation, or do you guys actually after the event get to spend a little bit of time actually spending time, as I say, in the boys' club, but also actually getting to explore whatever land?
Oh, look, you go. Usually, if you've got the time, if you haven't got the time, it's usually fly in. You do the job, you fly out. If you want to stick around yourself later, you can. I've only done that once when I was in Korea. I just extended the trip for a few days. Just I wanted to see Busan and see what it was like, and it was nice. It was good, but usually it's just fly in, fly out. Yeah.
Nice. Well, look, what I'm going to do, this is always an experiment, right? What I started this series is I let a few people tune into the show every week, and I like to open up the lines and see if they've got some questions that, because look, at the end of the day, I fire a few questions out here and there, but you know, I'm just doing what I can as well, and there's a lot of things that I forget too, and that's why I say like I would be useless when it comes to like doing what you do, because I'm quite forgetful at times. But what I want to do is open up the lines for you know a few minutes and see if we have any questions out there. So if there's anyone out in the clubhouse that has got a question, we'd like to hear from you.
Hey, Dennis. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Cool. I had a question about Anthony's thoughts on 10-7 rounds and 10-10 rounds.
Yeah, what would you like to know?
Obviously, there's very few 10-7 rounds, and you know there's some debate like should they be used more often? Should we get rid of them again? And then also 10-10 rounds. 10-10 rounds makes sense. Obviously, if a round has to be stopped short for some reason, but maybe some really close 10-9 rounds could actually be 10-10 rounds. Do you think that the way it's laid out now, like are judges using 10-10 rounds and 10-7 rounds as often as they should?
Look, for a 10-7 round, you're going to look at one guy dominating the fight a lot. I've never seen a fight where it's going to be like that. I have seen fights where it's been a 10-8 round. Where a fighter is getting dominated and you give him that 10-8. But 10-7, I haven't seen. A 10-7 would have to be a bad domination on the fight. And I think at that point, if he's getting dominated that bad, I think maybe it might get stopped, because the referee might just see that the guy's copping too much damage. You might stop it. But I've never seen a 10-7 round the whole time I've been doing it. I've seen the 10-8s, the 10-9s. 10-10s, you do get them sometimes. It could be that close of a fight where their stand-up is that good that they've just kept it standing up and they just fighting the whole time stand up. And unless they mix it around and they get some wrestling and they get some takedowns there, they try to get it submissions, you'll probably see maybe a 10-10 because their stand up is so good. Usually the times that I've judged, I think I've only seen one 10-10. It was, I can't remember which country it was, but it was the two fighters that just pretty much basically boxed the whole time. And it was that close. They were lightweights. I think they were super fast. And they just went for it. And that's, I think, the only time I gave a 10-10. Usually you can spot out the difference and give that 10-9.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, I had another question, and this is sort of in line with what Dennis was mentioning. How, here on Clubhouse, there's a ton of people that talk about judging, and we've heard so many different ideas being thrown around. A lot of people have suggestions and ideas and stuff like that. And one of my points, whenever this comes up, is like, I just wish there was some format for people to experiment with, like other judging formats. I think it comes down to the commission a lot. And obviously the system that we have now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, there could be, a possibility for maybe a new judging system with like a couple of key changes that could be like, significantly better or just even, slightly better in some cases than maybe how it is these days. And
I think
my
that
question is,
that would have
like,
to come down to the commission, how would they want to do that?
right. And yeah, my question was like, what formats could exist for that to happen? Like let's say there was like maybe it's like a smaller regional promotion or something, like, and they had some like big ideas on how judging could be, and they want to make like these 5 changes. Like, would they go to the commission, and would the commission more than likely just pour cold water on the idea? Or like, what ways could a promotion or even like the MMA community, in combination with judges and commissions, like, come up with ways to experiment? Because we can all hypothesize how these things can be improved, but we need to actually test it. But we probably don't want to test that, say, at like a UFC pay-per-view or something like that. You want to test it smaller. So
I think
like,
if a small promotion
like
you're saying, if a small promotion or like a local promotion came up with an idea and they wanted to change it, I think they'd have to prove their point. They'd have to prove it to the commission to see that it actually works. They'd have to maybe test it out, maybe on a small show, and see how it goes, and then it'd go to the commission or go to the authority that looks after the judging and the refereeing and say, look, we've come up with this idea, we've tested it, and then the commission would have to run it. Just like everything else, when you get something new, you got to test it first. The prototype comes out, then they see how good it is. I think that's what they'd have to do.
Can I just ask and jump in as well? So I've got just another question came to head, and I'll take it back to, I guess, what fight was it now? It was the week after Aljo and the Peter Yan fight. There was which obviously, the belt got won by Aljo because of the illegal knee, where the following week practically the same thing happened, but they called it a no contest. How does that work? Like, how is an illegal knee, I guess, a fight ending 1 week, and the following week it's considered no contest, i.e. like no one wins that fight? Is there like a protocol behind that? Because I wasn't sure, like, is it how far along it goes into the fight, or like how does that work? And then on the other token, on that second instance, I remember, I forgot, I don't think it was Bruce, but he went up to Herb Dean and he said, do you want it to be a no contest or a no decision? Do you know what the difference between those two is?
Mate, I haven't, tell you the truth, what you're talking about, I never saw them. I was actually doing stuff with the charity at the time, because it's usually the time that I'm doing stuff with the charity in the weekend and the fights are on. So I didn't see any of that. So I don't want to make a comment about anything I didn't see.
Yeah, but
I don't know how it went. I don't know. I know which fight you're talking about, but I never saw how they happened or what happened.
But I guess I'm not trying to talk about that fight in particular. I'm saying, is there a rule that says if X happens, it's a no contest, and if X happens, we'll go to the scorecards? Or I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, when it comes to like illegal shots, like, is there something in writing there, or is it up to the referee's discretion, or how does that work?
There are rules that they have to follow, and the referee would be the best person to look at that time and make the decision and speak and say what needs to be done. That you'll have to speak more with a ref to get his background on it. Me as a judge, once that fight is stopped, I just wait as well to see what outcome's going to come out from when the referee stopped the fight. Will it be a DQ or no contest? Yeah. So there are things in place where they do look at, and then that's when the referee makes the decision.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do we have any more questions out in the clubhouse?
Yeah, I had another question, and it's about like, how are the judges themselves judged, if at all? Like, are there meta judges? Like, does the commission have like expert, like former judges or maybe current judges or senior judges or something that are like reviewing how judges perform over a long stretch of time and, you know, rendering a decision, you know, like, is this judge, you know, cutting it, so to speak?
Are you asking if there's a judge judging the judge? Is that what you're sort of asking?
Basically,
like who?
yeah.
Okay.
Or I guess on that, is there like a debrief after every event where a judge has to, I guess, state his case? Like, is there any, or is it just like you judge, you collect the paycheck and you're out of there?
No, we have a debrief. There is a debrief. There's no judge who judges on what the judges do. We have a debrief after the show, and they speak to us. The commission speaks to us and says, well, these are the fights that we want to speak to all of you about, and we want to have your reasoning as to why you scored it this way. And we go through the process, and each judge will give an account of his rounds of how he scored it, and that's how the commission sees what each judge does, and they take that upon themselves and they look at it, and then if they want to come back to you later, they can. Or they might just say, all right, fair enough, yep, all good. And that's how they pretty much see which judges I think they're going to be using. But we always have a debrief after the show.
And let me ask you, like when you put on the, I mean, I guess with the smaller national ones, it's a bit different, but with say the UFC cards, are you judging from start to finish, or like, are you able to take, I guess, one fight on, one fight off, one fight?
The way they do it, they rotate it. So they'll have the 6 judges and they rotate us around. So we don't do like fight after fight. I might say, for argument's sake, have bout 1, bout 3, bout 5, bout 7, bout 9. I might have the first fight, then I might sit the 2 and then jump in the next one. They spread it out because they want you to be fresh. They want you to be focused at each fight that you're going to judge.
Well, that's where I was kind of going with that, like, because it's kind of like driver fatigue, right?
Yeah,
like if you're there, as we know, some of these UFC cards, they're like 8 hours long, right? Like, and I was just thinking, like, are you expected to be in this concentration mode for 8 hours, or do they give you?
No. You rotate. You're not constantly working every fight. There's 6 judges and they rotate us around for like, I don't know how many cards. Sometimes you might get 12 fights, you know, and they mix you around with the fights that you're going to do. You're not constantly doing every fight.
And are you in the same corner every fight that you do, or they rotate you on that as well?
You rotate it around. So you're not seeing it at the same corner the whole time. You're rotating around.
Perfect. All right, I'll throw it out one more time. If there's any more questions out in the clubhouse.
Sure. You know, in the you know, parlor talk of like, you know, MMA fans, there's always people who make accusations that, like, you know, oh, this judge, you know, they're like, you know, in cahoots with someone, or there's some corrupting influence that's, you know, skewing their decision or something like that. But as far as I'm aware, there's not been any cases where like a judge has been caught doing that, like outright like corruption. Are you aware of any cases where like a judge has actually been caught and had some you know, repercussions from like some form of corruption?
No, not that I know of, mate. Everyone's legit here. Like I said, people get on social media and say what they want. Everyone has their own opinion and they're entitled to say what they want. People will just accuse you of anything, but I know nothing of that, mate. I know that everyone's legit on that show and they all do a proper professional job.
I guess where Jay's coming from, because I know he's been in a couple of rooms with me, is Max Griffin, UFC fighter. He's jumped on a couple of times and he's told us about an example where he went off to Brazil and, you know, he had a fight and literally all the judges kind of went against him. But to the point, he said that once he came out of the ring, even the UFC, like every UFC stuff was like, you won that fight. And he's now actually put a clause in that he will never go back to Brazil again. And I guess that's where it kind of stems from.
Okay. I didn't even know that happened. Didn't even realize.
Yeah, so I think, and I guess that's the same as you knowing a fighter, you know, like, do some people sway because it's their countrymen? Like, do you like to, let me ask you this, do you like to ref Australians, or do you prefer to ref to internationals instead, just so you can't, I guess in a sense, even be labeled that way?
No, look, I've judged so many fights, and I've judged the Aussie fighters. I've judged the international fighters. Like I said to you before, man, I have no bias. I have nothing. I look at just two fighters going at it, and I'm judging to see who's going to win that fight. All the other influences around me, I just block out. I don't have any bias or anything like that. No.
Beautiful. Okay, well, for the last time, have you got any more questions out there?
That's all I got.
Perfect.
Cool, man. Nice talking to you.
So yeah, on that note, man, like as I say to everyone, like I really kind of appreciate you coming in and taking the time, and you know, it's been a minute, and as I said, like even enjoyed having a coffee with you beforehand. It's always good times. So like leading forward now, things are starting to open again. I mean, not that you're the person to make these sort of decisions, but do you feel like we might get a fight card down here this year, or is that what you're hoping for? Or
I hope we do, man. If the way Corona's going at the moment and the cases are dropping, vaccines coming out, if governments can work out how they're going to allow people come in from other countries and do stuff, because you see at the moment they're going to Fight Island, they're going to Las Vegas, they're doing the shows, and they're going pretty good. Hopefully soon, man, they can open up our borders again, and you know, they can do fight shows here again or overseas in other countries. It'll be good. It just all depends, mate, on how this virus goes. That pretty much that's what's controlling everything at the moment, and how they're going to control that. Yeah.
I mean, and it really is, you know. But like I've been saying for ages, like we've been lucky enough to have full capacity crowds now, or New Zealand anyway, and literally. But I think it's the expense. If you were going to get all these athletes across to have that 2-week quarantine, because obviously with Fight Island they've got quarantine, but I think it's a 48-hour thing, and I'm pretty sure Dubai probably foots the bill for that, where our government will probably make the UFC pay for every single athlete.
There's a lot of expenses involved with it, you know, and then you got to weigh all those things up. If we're gonna have another show here in Australia, I think things would have to be pretty much settled with COVID, and everything's legit with it. And I think there's got to be that assurance that no one's going to get affected or anything. And that's probably how they'll let everyone come back into the country. Hopefully that happens soon, man, because everyone's missing the action. You know, it's just been a shit year. 2020, 21 starting off good. It's just hope from now onwards it just gets better and better, and things can get back to normal again.
Well, I just hope as well, because we've got so many good fighters coming out of this neck of the woods now, right? Sure. That I just hope that with Izzy, Brad Riddell, Jamie Malaki had a really good performance. You got Alex over there now with the Tough series, but I just hope now that we've finally got a lot of decent fighters coming from this, I think now you could really have some good events, because even like the last couple down in Melbourne, you know, I mean, it was dope to have Ronda Rousey here. I guess especially at the time, but and I guess the last one was Izzy versus Rob, but I just feel like now we really have a big kind of like contingency that comes out of here, right?
It'd be good to get the shows back here, to have all these guys and girls that are fighting on their local territory, and have the UFC come here. They're fighting here in their home base. It'll be good. It's good for the country, it's good for the fighters, and it's good for the sport.
Well, mate, as I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. For people that end up listening to this or watching it, depending on what platform they kind of get it from, if someone wants to reach out to you, you know, to maybe ask you a few more questions or things like that, what's kind of like the best way of them getting in touch?
You can find me on Instagram, on Anthony Dimitriou. You can find me on there. If you just type my name out, you'll find me there. So it's all good. I can answer your questions on that.
Nice. Well, look, I look forward to you getting back to action, because I also love the photos you produce from these events. You're the one guy that always grabs a little cheeky photo with the ring girls, and you know, I really sit there and I'm like, man, I wish that was me for a second. But no, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. I do really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to come. And as I said, I just like to pick people's brains, and I just knew that, you know, you would give me a honest opinion. So thank you again. Hopefully we'll see you back in action, or at least read your name at the bottom of, because obviously the judges don't get any love apart from that one single name. But until then, and until you know, I have my next guest, look, thank you, stay blessed.
I'm a one. I'm a one.